And a good Saturday afternoon to you, Joe Roderick, Brenden Schaeffer, as we kick off things here on Sports Hub STL on a Saturday, a jam-packed Saturday. This is Cards Hub 365, powered by Gray Bar. Brenden, the Cardinal game ended about a half an hour or so ago. They win another one in Grapefruit League action. That'll make Ryan Fagan happy, who was he was so just into the standings yesterday
Oh, he
of the
was.
he had it on the screen and he was breaking down numbers and oh man, he'll be happy with the win as but plenty to talk about from the game today, and it's been a few days since you have been on the show, so get your thoughts on some of the things that happened. But Cardinals again 3-2 win. Thomas Saggese walks it off in the ninth. I guess they just ended a tie in spring training, right?
I think they probably would have. They might later on in spring. They might be willing to play an inning just to like try out the overtime rules or whatever, but probably not on March the 1st. I would have expected a tie. Yeah.
That's where I think Ollie, he goes to the opposing manager like, I got another pitcher. He could throw an inning. You got one? Okay, we'll go out there. We'll do.
That would be the way that would play out. I think they would just call it at this point in the calendar. You get a little closer to the regular season, and they might say, yeah, we've got a pitcher that's a reliever that maybe he throws a 10th inning at some point with a ghost man on second, so we'll do it. But I get at this early stage of spring, we're still early. I know we'll talk about some of the different guys that are struggling, and those struggles are starting to mount for some, but technically still early.
Yeah, I think also, too, I wonder how much the umpires play into that, where they kind of look at it and they say, yeah, you know what? I'm getting paid for 9 today. We're good.
Hey, look, man, I've seen all sorts of things in spring training games. We've seen it multiple times where a guy gets shelled, gets taken out, and there he is starting the next inning. You're thinking, you got to be kidding me. I had to sit through this guy pitch, give up 8 runs, and now he's back out there. I'm just trying to go home. But that can happen. And I remember back in like 2021 when it was like in the post-COVID haze, and they said, sometimes if you're just not able to get out of an inning, just roll it over if your pitcher is.
I haven't seen that in a while.
No, they don't do that. That was a terrible idea. I mean, look.
So that's something that's gone, because I was wondering if that was
something. No, they don't still do that.
Okay, I didn't know if that was because you don't really see spring training rules kind of rolled out there. I didn't know that was just a thing post-COVID, but because I did see that, in youth baseball, trust me, in 10U baseball, you roll over innings a lot. You'll just okay, hey, we can move on to the next one. It's okay. But when you see that in Major League Baseball spring training, you go, whoa, hey, they're doing that too.
I think we experimented with a lot of things in the sports world as a result of COVID, and that was one that we did. And right when you did it, you go, this feels kind of icky. Like fans are paying still regular season ticket prices for those spring training tickets. Finish the inning, like play it like a real game. And I think that's the right way to do it. But they do allow, like we've seen it with Tink Hence and Sem Robertson so far this spring. The guy struggled. He came out to start the next inning because he's a starting pitcher needing to get his work in. So that is maybe one little variation that we do see. Occasionally you'll see a tie, but not if Thomas Saggese has anything to say about it. The walk-off to score some guy I've never heard of. Cardinals win it 3-2. The crowd goes wild.
The other day we brought up to our all of our friends in the YouTube chat, and we welcome all question, comments, whatever you have for us today on the YouTube chat here on Sports Hub STL. We welcome it all. We were asking what people look for when they're watching spring training games. I wonder how many of the audience has been down to spring training games down in Jupiter, or maybe you head up to West Palm. And when you go there, what is the plan when you go there? Because Brenden, you have been to a lot of spring training games. I usually am well out of there before the games are underway when I go down. But I could only imagine that for most of the media there, it is, all right, let's see if we can get a game going in under about 2:10. If we can get a 2-hour, 10-minute game, that would be wonderful today. And I wonder, as a fan, you're going there and it's like, all right, I'm invested for about 2 hours in this and I'm out.
Surely there's like a tiki bar out there serving tropical drinks. I can't have any of those when I'm covering a game, but that's what I would be going for, is the ambiance, the atmosphere, have a few drinks, like hang out. And maybe you see a guy that 3 years down the road, you could go, oh, I remember when this guy, hit a double in a spring training game or whatever the case might be. I don't think you're getting too caught up in the results. But you know what? Cardinals fans are fans of the team, and so they're going to wear their red. They're going to go down there and enjoy. But no, I think that spring training trip is more than anything. It's about the level of access you have to the players in an environment that's different because you can see them in a little bit more of a relaxed environment. And that's why you mentioned it. You don't normally, when you're down in Jupiter, stick around for once Grapefruit League play begins. I am kind of that way. I saw a couple games this year, but I think the most interesting part is actually what happens on the backfields. But that's also, and Claibs will tell us and remind us, like you can't necessarily learn a lot about what's going on the backfields. You can kind of see something to keep an eye out for when the games begin, but you do need these guys to eventually get into game action to show what they've been working on all off season. But if you're just wanting to be able to enjoy the ambiance of spring training, go down to the backfields and watch some guy throw a bullpen. Like that's the kind of stuff that you don't really get a chance to do during the regular year. That's what to me makes that whole Jupiter experience special and different.
Not only that, because the other thing you notice from the backfields when you go, if I'll bring up youth sports again, is the drills that these guys are doing that you will learn at 10 years old that they're still doing at 28, and they are still doing the same things that a 12-year-old is going to complain that he just wants to go out there and try to hit dingers.
I just want to play. Yeah.
He just wants to get out there and play. And then you go out there and you watch highlights of it, and you're seeing Mookie Betts do the same thing that you would that you're paying for at a camp, at a summer camp for baseball. And it just never ends. That kind of work just never ends, no matter how what kind of generational talent you are. You still are going to work on those exact same things your entire life.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you go to baseball practice a couple times a week, and then you maybe play a game on the weekend or whatever the case might be.
Cardinals, you Brenden, you are in for it. Many years to come. If you think it's just a couple practices a week and games on weekends.
Hey, if I have my way, my son will play just like I did in like CYC. We're going parochial on this whole thing, and that's a little bit more the speed that I think is appropriate. But I understand it's gotten way bigger than that. So acknowledging that I have been out of the game for a while in that regard. I do think it's like when you look at the Cardinals, they play every single day, and when they get a rare off day, they're not holding the practice, right? Like it's a little bit of a different situation. So you get to see the Cardinals in practice basically because they have practices all spring, and then they start playing the games, and then from there, that's their life for 6 months. But it's kind of cool to be able to see them practice like you would when you were a kid, or like your kids now do. And it's like, oh yeah, the pros keep practicing because it's what helps them be great. And like you said, that never stops.
Enjoy your weekends while you have them now, and be able to control them. For the time being, because it's not going to be that way a few years from now. To the game today. First and foremost, Nolan Arenado started at third. Nolan Gorman started at second. So all of my conspiracies from the past few days.
What were you? Gorman what have starting you been doing with me gone? What have you been up to that I have to kind of keep a handle on when I get you back on here? What's going on here?
I mean, you had Gorman starting at third on Thursday, and then and then you had Donovan there second, and I mean playing second base the other day, and I kind of look at that and I'm thinking, okay, Arenado's DHing. Maybe there's something in the works, and they're starting to move Gorman over to third. So
they've said they're gonna play some Gorman at third, and like Donovan should play second. If you're making a decision between, like, let's say Arenado's not traded, but somebody's going to be the backup third baseman, is it Gorman or Donovan? If they're going to decide that it's Gorman, then Donnie's going to play second. That's the only spot for him on the infield. Like you could put him elsewhere, but that's where he's going to play in the regular season. So like again. Gorman's a DH. He's not the second baseman as I see it, because unless you move Newt Bar to center, where's Donovan going to fit any better than being the second baseman? So
let's start there, though. Let's start with some of this, because Nolan Gorman again today went 0 for 3 with 2 more strikeouts. Still looking for his first hit in spring. Again, it's March 1st. It's March 1st. They have played 7 days of games right now. Their first game was last Saturday. We have seen a week of spring training games. Nolan Gorman still without a hit. I know we are still a couple weeks away from freaking out about something like that. But I will ask you this: if the struggles continue, does Nolan Gorman does he start on the bench? Does he start in AAA? If you look at this and your best option does not include him in your starting 9.
I think it's a higher likelihood that he starts in AAA than on the bench, and he does have an option remaining. Was talking with somebody about that this morning, and it's like, all right, Gorman's got the runway, but he's got to show something, right? Like the level to which he can just roll out 0 for 12 with 8 Ks every week, probably not once you get closer to mid and late March going to be exciting to many people. If you're Alec Burleson, you're looking at that going, all right, like, here's my opportunity, because we didn't really think that there was going to be much that Gorman had to do to just get the runway on March 27th. Like, we're not talking about it's a 6-month runway and it's indefinite and nothing he does can change that. But 0 for 12 with 8 Ks is kind of a different level. So I think the way the Cardinals are going to treat it is flush it and play the next week, and then maybe do that one more time. But if you get to mid-March and it still looks, again, he could be hitting 111 with 6 Ks and we'd be feeling different about it. Over 12 with 8 Ks, it's like, I sure hope he's working on something mechanically, because that's eventually you do have to produce some results. I don't know, man. Would they eat it in the first few weeks of the regular season and say, nope, we said we're giving him runway, so let's run him out there. We know what's going to happen if he looks like this, but we got to at least see it so we know if we're going to give somebody else the priority, it's going to be because he earned the lack of playing time. But if he's this lost, maybe you do send him to AAA with that option and just say, all right, figure it out for a little bit. And when you get here, you're going to play. But right now, you've got too many cooks in the kitchen ever since Arenado came back. And I don't think it can just be indefinite. But am I worried on March 1st and saying time to change plans? Not yet, at least from where I sit.
Yeah, and as it's you look at it, and one of the somebody else chimes in. I was going to say it too. I mean, Jordan Walker also has 7 strikeouts, but Randy Carricker the other morning he and Brooke Grimsley were talking about this on the morning show, and he was saying, if Gorman's 2 for 50 or 3 for 50 in his spring training at bats, maybe that's where you look. I'm like, okay, what's the cutoff then for something like this? Is it 4? I mean, if he's 4 for 55, I mean, so at a certain point, like what exactly are you looking for to sit here and say, okay, hey, you know what? We're going to give you the first few weeks of the season to figure this out. And that being said, too, I mean, go ahead.
It's not numbers you're looking for. It's the quality of the at-bats. And nobody wants to hear that. But the eye test probably doesn't look too good when you're 0 for 12 with 8 Ks either. So, right. But like, that's part of it. Like, how are these, what are these strikeouts coming from? Is he chasing anything and everything? And is he still doing it when you get to late March and he looks lost at the plate? If so, the batting line is almost irrelevant. If that's how he looks and feels, why put him through the start of the big league season? Is something magically going to change? Like, then it would be defensible to start him at AAA. If you start to see him turn any sort of corner, though, regardless of the results in spring, I think you go, all right, let's run him out there and see. The only problem is, like, you should be trying to run out Alec Burleson, too, because he's another one of those younger players that, blossomed a little bit last year, and you want to be able to feed into that as well. And you can only choose to prioritize so many guys at once. So, like, yeah, there is going to be a rock and a hard place sort of thing with this, Joe, until an injury happens. Again, one guy gets hurt, and I think it cleans up a lot of this, and you just say, Gorman, go play. Like, this is the year where you're going to go play, and if you finish 170 batting average with 245 strikeouts and 12 homers, then you're probably not on this team next year, but at least we tried, because we don't have to look down the road and say when Gorman's hitting 40 bombs for the Red Sox or whatever, we don't have to say, well, we really should have given him some runway, and we could have seen that he's this good. Like, the Cardinals have gotten burned on that so many times that I almost think it's out of stubbornness. You go, no, you're playing because we're going to make damn sure that we don't give up on somebody too early. And if we do give up on you, it's because you absolutely floundered in the prove it year. And is what it is.
And that's, I mean, they've given him multiple opportunities over the past few years. I'm sitting here right now, and he is one of 3 guys on the roster at the moment that has no hits. Or I guess there's a few others. I guess I didn't hit the next one. Mason Wynn also with no hits so far on the early season. But the strikeout number that's the thing that's the biggest concern, because last year, I think he was sent down to AAA before the All-Star break. Again, it was because of the strikeout numbers, because it was historic, the rate that he was going at with the strikeouts. And I would have to think that was what they told him to focus on, especially with a new hitting coach coming in. And you're looking, and it's like, listen, contact numbers need to go up, and then we can revisit everything. We can look at everything else, look at the swing and everything else after that. But when, again, you're over 50% a week into spring training, again, the strikeout numbers are the thing that is going to be the most concerning over the batting average, over anything else.
I think that's fair, but I don't think it's the only thing, because if the homers are there, they'll take the strikeouts. They really will. But you have to be able to counterbalance the whiff rate with some loud contact, and you're not getting any of that right now. So I don't think you're going to suddenly turn Gorman into a Burleson, like a contact hitter, but you've got to be able to offset some of these strikeouts with the power that makes it worthwhile to keep you in the lineup. That being said, I don't think reacting to this week is something the Cardinals are going to do, but I bet they're kind of privately going, all right, like at a certain point, I think that does have to pick up. But as it's constructed, I still think let him play this spring out and see if he gets into more of a rhythm when you're playing every day and all, more of a regular season environment before you react. Because like his numbers last year overall weren't good, but like was still, I think, was he a 670 OPS? I want to say, like, it, even though it was rough for a while, he started pretty strong and then he really fell off. 670 OPS is not like so brutal that I think you just can't possibly have him in the lineup. Right now his OPS is 0. So you got to start somewhere with being able to counterbalance some of the big time whiff effect with some big time power. But here's a question that comes in, Joe, that I think is still relevant to this conversation. And Bill is asking about an article where Mo said he thinks Donovan is an all-star left fielder. And I think the context was Mo basically saying we could be good this year or we could be not so good this year. And here are a bunch of the questions that could potentially help answer which of the things we're going to be as a team. One of them was mentioning Donovan, like, can he be an all-star left fielder? I think was like the hypothetical that Mo posed, which is fascinating because to me, Lars Nootbaar is your left fielder. So why are we talking about this? That's
because with the team the way it is right now.
I know.
There is still the opportunity. I mean, I guess there still is the chance that Lars Nootbaar is your center fielder, not your left fielder.
That's why I bring it up, because the person describing it is John Mozeliak, and I don't know where the quote originated, but it wasn't a Ken Rosenthal story. So I don't know if that was just exclusive to Rosenthal or what it was. I always try to provide the context when I know it. I don't this time. But I did see that quote. Mozeliak is the one saying it. So if I'm reading the tea leaves, I would say in the arrangement of is Lars Nootbaar going to play center or are we going to go with a defensive first option? You kind of know what Mo's preference is, right? Like, am I crazy to read that much into it? Whereas if he's talking about Donnie as a left fielder, that means he might be kind of pushing toward Newt playing center field. Will that be something that where Ollie Marmol has said, we're going to have to talk about some of these decisions that aren't just short-term decisions, that are long-term conversations between the field staff, the front office, and everybody involved. If they come to determine that, hey, what we need is to have Nootbaar in center so Donnie plays left to fit Gorman and Burleson both in the lineup against right-handed pitching, then that bus right now, it feels like the front office is putting that out there. It says, can he be a left fielder? I don't view him as a left fielder, so I thought that was notable. That's like, all right, Mozeliak is still kind of kicking that idea around where the front office might like to see that, and you maximize the runs you can score, Joe, because they were 22nd in runs scored last year, and that clearly was not good enough, and it's got to be better. So can you afford a bunch of defense-first names in your lineup? Maybe the front office viewpoint is no. I don't think it's set in stone. We've still got close to 4 weeks before the season begins, but I did see that article, Bill, and I thought that quote did stand out, that Mozeliak is basically kind of, at least mentally, wondering what the Cardinals might look like in 2025 with Brendan Donovan playing more left than second base.
I was trying to find too while you were talking there to kind of wrap up the Nolan Gorman thing, I saw, and I was trying to find where I saw it, and I was trying to find the overall numbers. Every team, because they kind of came out with over-unders for home runs for a lot of its players. And
Is
I
this
saw
a
that
sports book or is this just a?
that's why I was trying to find it.
You don't know.
I saw the graphic today that showed who every team's top home run hitter was, I guess, or was predicted to be as far as over unders go, and it had Nolan Gorman as the Cardinals' leading home run hitter. I think at like 25 is what they had him at as far as over unders, which surprised me that they would have him over Wilson Contreras. Just assuming that Wilson Contreras becomes a 30 home run kind of guy playing first base or DHing full time instead of having to catch, but also the factor of to get to 25, to get the over on that, he's got to be up here for the entire season.
But he's going to be if he doesn't go over the spring. Yeah. Like the threshold was very low for what Gorman had to do and still has to do to be playing every single day when we get to the regular season. And yet we're going, what I was asking of you was low, but holy bleep, like we're getting to a point where we may have to still have a conversation that we did not think was going to be be the
Yeah, you can cuss here on Sports Hub STL, Brenden, if you would like. No self-censored.
I'm going
to if you would choose. Yeah, I'm just letting you letting you
know
the
that.
Meme
where they say my expectations for you were low, but holy bleep, that was sort of the Not that they expected low of Gorman. It's that we're not asking much of you in the spring to give you all this runway, but probably you got to do something to earn the runway if that's fair.
Yeah. I know. I was like, I'll probably find it as soon as we're off the show today. I was really hoping to find that and see where they had Wilson Contreras, see where they had a guy like Jordan Walker, those type of guys for that. But plenty of home run talk will be coming your way once the Cardinals start, and I give you my daily Roddy Bombs predictions on Cards Hub 365. Yeah, looking forward to throwing that out there, because Brenden, also, if I do shows from home, I can place bets while we're doing them on the show.
Oh, you live in Illinois, huh?
Yeah, you can't. I can. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't anyway, but I understand that. Wait till football season, and I'll really start to try to place some bets, but not
if
not
you
on
can.
baseball.
Yeah, if you can. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll have to drive across to do it for that.
Hey, this is Cards Hub 365, powered by Gray Bar. If you're still suffering from supply chain issues and they're disrupting your operations, have no fear, because Gray Bar has you covered, and you can rely on their nationwide logistics network to get you what you need, where they need to be, and when they need to get there, all within budget. Gray Bar is a trusted and leading North American distributor of electrical communications, data networking, and industrial products. Gray Bar literally supports the products of any industry: construction, hospitals, industrial plants, schooling. It doesn't matter. They have just one clear mission: to serve as that vital link in the supply chain, adding value for customers and suppliers with innovative solutions and services. Visit graybar.com. Start an order today. That's graybar.com, and fix those supply chain issues with Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. Brenden, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about what we saw today out of Miles Mikolas, who made his second start, threw about 50 pitches, could not finish the third inning before they pulled him from the game. But Miles Mikolas is one of those guys that has an awful lot to prove in what you would assume is his final season with the Cardinals, maybe final season in baseball, as he wraps up his contract with the Cardinals this season. What have you seen out of his first two starts?
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about something specific that happened today, and we only got to see it because John Denton tweeted it out. Game was not televised today, but the home run that he allowed, I believe, to Josh Bell with 2 strikes, and the location of that pitch is something we saw way too many times last year from Miles Mikolas. Again, I'm of the camp that despite how many young pitchers are kind of knocking on the door, you could talk about Quinn Matthews, you could talk about McGreevy, you could talk about Tekoa Roby, and boy, have I enjoyed talking about Tekoa Roby. You could talk about, if they want Libby to be a starter, Gordon Graceffo. Like, the list is very lengthy. I think this is going to be the summer where you're going to see a lot of these guys come in and they can take starts and they might establish themselves as dudes for the future. That's what could be exciting about this. But I'm also in the camp of, hey, you're paying Mikolas and Mats already. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth where you think we have to, let's move Mats to the bullpen. Let's cut Mikolas and just, pay him to go away so we can have all these prospects in the rotation to start the year. I don't think that's a good idea because it's a long season And we have seen what it looks like before when you don't have enough pitching. You think, oh, we've got more pitching than we know what to do with. Let's send some guys packing before the season even begins. I would slow down on that and say, give these guys a little bit of a runway, but not as long of a runway as you have in past years. If Miles Mikolas goes through the first, 4 or 6 weeks, kind of looking like he looked last year and kind of like he looked today, when you've got a guy in a 2-strike count and you just throw a meatball over the plate because you're not careful enough with your location when you're ahead as a pitcher, that's how you end up with a 5.35 ERA again. I think if Mikolas is having those tendencies, I don't know that the Cardinals' sort of leverage or latitude for that should be infinite. I think at a certain point, you'll have a Quinn Matthews in AAA pitching well. You'll have a, McGreevy, obviously is somebody they hope's in the opening day rotation. We just don't know exactly how that's going to happen yet. I think there are things that Miles Mikolas is going to have to do in the early going to prove he's improved upon what he did last year. And if not, this might be a year where you do have enough ammunition in that Memphis rotation to eventually you get to mid-May. Maybe it takes till June, but you look at the results and go, let's actually give runway to a younger player that we think is part of our future. Because as you mentioned, Miles is in the final year of his deal. I like Miles Mikolas a lot. I think he's got to pitch better for it to make sense for the Cardinals to house him for 6 months. Relative to last year, it's a different situation coming into this year because he is on an expiring deal. If the Cardinals get to a point where they're not in contention for playoffs, let's say they're 5 games below 500 in the middle of the season, and Miles is 5.5 ERA, like I think at that point you're going to go, well, maybe, what are we doing giving deference to a player that may not be around for the future? Those are tough business decisions, and I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope Miles improves and can be the guy that throws 200 innings and has all-star caliber stuff. He's done that twice with the Cardinals. I think we've got to see that improvement in this specific area. When you're in a 2-strike count, don't be afraid to kind of play with the corners a little bit rather than give them something that they haven't earned in the batter's box.
Based on the type of pitcher that Miles Mikolas is, too, I don't think you want him to be that strikeout pitcher. I don't think you want him getting to those 2-strike counts where he's trying to then strike you out. I think the Cardinals, and what's been their philosophy over the years, it's kind of, hazy to kind of figure out what their philosophy is now in this new era of Cardinal baseball. But in the past, it was, you let the guys put it in play. You're going to have a great defense behind you. They're going to make the outs. Where a guy like Miles Mikolas, who doesn't have any really overpowering stuff, if you're getting to 2 strikes and then you're giving up hits, it's almost those are almost wasted pitches that you had at the beginning. And that's taking you out of games a lot earlier. You mentioned wanting to get him to 200 innings in a season. If that's going to be the case, you kind of almost want the strikeouts to be down and just, hey, get outs early in the count. Get outs on a 1-1 count, and hey, let the defense do it. Be done with it instead of getting to 0-2 and then fooling around and getting to 2-2 and then giving up a home run. And
you just can't give up the home run. Fool around a little bit if you want. Like I'm saying, he can't be so in the middle of the plate when he's ahead in the count. Like I'm not saying you got to strike anybody out, but paint the corners. Or, I'm not saying you have to waste a bunch of pitches, but I think we're kind of saying opposite things right now, Joe, because the Cardinals do not want him to throw that hittable of a pitch in a 2-strike count. It's okay because he can throw 100, 110 pitches and get through 6-7 innings. You just cannot have the mistake at the end of it. And it's almost like the more pitches they see of you in an at-bat, waiting for like getting it timed up, being ready to hit it when you put it in the wrong location. You got to be better with locating in those. If it's 0-2, okay, if you're going to waste a pitch or if you're going to kind of paint and try to get them to get themselves out, that's fine. I agree with you. Getting to 0-2, not a necessity for him, but you can't control if guys are taking your strikes early, trying to get ready to time you up and knowing what's coming later. You just have to be a little bit patient and understand that kind of meatball after you've earned the 2-strike count is what cost him a lot last year. How many quality 2-strike hits and homers did he give up last year because the pitch was down the middle instead of on one of the corners or get it up or get it down below the zone?
You mentioned at the beginning of this, if it's not Mikolas that's in the rotation, you threw out the names of Libator. You mentioned Graceffo. There was another one I know you threw in there too.
Roby.
Roby was the other one that you had mentioned beforehand. you and many others that are when they start talking about pitching for the Cardinals in 2025, the name that always seems to be left out time and time again is a guy that was in the rotation at the start of last year, Zach Thompson. And it just seems like when you talk to anybody right now about Cardinal pitching, Zach Thompson's name is one that is just uh, never gets mentioned ever anymore. And this was a
Yeah.
guy that they had such high hopes for. I mentioned he was in the starting five. He was in the starting rotation last year when Sonny Gray had the delayed start to the season.
Yeah.
And it never took. This is a former first round pick. He's 27 years old. This should be one of those make it or break it years for a guy like that too.
He kind of has to earn the make it or break it, unfortunately, at this point. With like the spring numbers are going to be real important for him and how it looks in spring. And is the velocity 96 on this pitch, but then it's 92 on the next one and then 90, and you can't figure out how to kind of keep it consistently. He had a situation last year where, he started off and won the job in spring, right? But what kind of ended up happening, and it was a little bit behind the scenes where they weren't really too clear about what it was, but like his mechanics were having trouble getting consistent. He had lost weight and like came in as a trimmer version of himself. And I think at a certain point that kind of impacted mechanics where his repeatability of his delivery was maybe suffering a bit. And they sent him down at a point after some early struggles to kind of work through that. And it didn't really improve necessarily in spring. There were during the season when he was in the minors, there were a lot of conversations and with him, he talked about moving to Florida, moving his family to Florida to being able to work out outside throughout the offseason and try to change some things to get ready to roll for this spring. He's almost kind of have to rebuild the entire notion of his reputation. And I think he's got a chance to do that with whatever spring opportunities he gets. He hasn't thrown a bunch yet this spring, which is kind of troubling for a guy that like he needs a chance to get seen to be able to kind of change the opinion of him and get back into that conversation. But if the Cardinals don't throw him in those spots, and I'm not saying they're not going to, it's still kind of early in spring, but it feels like other guys are having those next opportunities and we haven't seen a ton of him yet. So maybe that's coming in the next couple of days. I'd have to look and see when the last time he pitched was. But yeah, that's definitely a situation where I'm not sure he is as high on the depth chart, Joe, and to kind of force his way back in would almost have to be regaining that consistency that he used to have and kind of lost for a while in 2024. And I don't know what the opportunity is going to be like to do that. Like, would they start him in AAA? Would they send him back down there and have him in the rotation and give him runway in the minors just before they, make a decision about his spot on the 40-man? I'm not sure. I'm rooting for the guy. I just don't know exactly what the opportunity is going to be.
Other highlights from today as we wrap up Cards Hub 365 on this Saturday. Wilson Contreras with his first home run of spring today.
Yeah.
Victor Scott with a stolen base. Victor Scott with another hit too. So he continues to impress at the plate early on. And if we're diving into things, Victor Scott got the start in left field today. Something that we've been told. It's something that we've been told will be happening, though, that he will get those starts in the corner outfield positions and not just center field. So Jose Fermin also played outfield today. So he's just one of those guys. He's bringing all the gloves to the ballpark if he makes the opening day club. Yeah. Yeah.
If the problem for Fermin is that they have not ever at the big league level viewed him as a shortstop. How do I know that? They've never played him there. He plays in the minors all the time. He's never played an inning there in the big leagues. I don't believe. In a regular season game. Hellman was described by the president of baseball operations as a, quote, true shortstop. I believe that was the quote. Basically saying, like, he could fill in that position if he had to, which to me, almost regardless of what Hellman hits, gives him the leg up for that bench spot in the regular season, because they'll just need somebody that can fill in twice a month for Mason Wynn. Like, it's not a lot that's required of that position, but it also has to be somebody that you don't care if they rot away on the bench, which Fermin fits that. He could rot away on the bench and would be happy to do so, I think, at this point, because he's played a lot of years in AAA. But that doesn't apply to, like, Saggese. You're not going to have him for that role. So I see Cardinals fans getting it kind of twisted all the time, where they're like, well, we need to play the young guys. Saggese's got to make this team. Why would Hellman make the team over Saggese? It's the role. Saggese's a prospect. He's got to play. Yep. He's not going to be on the bench anywhere. So that's the deal with Saggese. If Mason Wynn got injured, you might see Saggese as the everyday shortstop in St. Louis. Until such time, I don't think he's on the roster because I think he needs to play every day wherever he is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's if he is on the Cardinal roster on the bench opening day, there's a lot of bad things that probably happened
I don't
in
even
the
I can't
organization.
conceive of the scenario, but
Right.
yeah, we'll see.
And that's what I'm saying. Like it would have to be just like something catastrophic as far as injuries go, to where you're just looking at him going, maybe you'll get a couple starts a week, but you're on the bench, not playing in Memphis
On that day,
type
right.
of thing. Yeah. So it'd be a very odd situation if that were to happen. Brenden, a lot of shows coming up today here on Sports Hub STL, but you and I are done for the day. We have Rock and Rammer doing Sloop Billikens post game, Chris Pelican, Kareem Rush doing Mizzou post game, Jacob Stonick and Thomas Welch doing the Blues post game, and then late tonight it's Rock and Will Bratton doing the City post game show as they are out in San Jose. But a lot of post game shows coming your way, all of them brought to you by our friends over at Hot Shots. So stick around, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and know when we go live here on Sports Hub STL for all of your favorite teams. It's post-game shows for everybody, and it'll all be right here on Sports Hub STL. That'll do it for us, though. He's Brenden Schaeffer. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been another edition of Cards Hub 365. Every single day, it's Cardinal Talk here on Sports Hub STL.